You don't expect the Arctic to be loud. Most people think silence, snow, nothing. But at night, above the 74th parallel, the tundra screams. Wind claws at corrugated iron, ice cracks like rifle fire, and sometimes, something else moves between the barracks that shouldn't. In January 2018, the Russian 83rd Separate Guards Air Assault Brigade, one of the most elite airborne units in the world, rotated a reinforced battalion north to a forgotten base near the Yenisei River mouth. Officially, they were there for Arctic warfare certification and to guard strategic radar sites. Unofficially, Moscow wanted bodies on the ground before NATO started sniffing too close to the new northern sea route. The base had been hastily reopened after 60 years of abandonment. Most buildings were new prefabricated modules, but the brigade inherited one original structure from the Soviet era, Barracks Block 4, a long, low concrete slab built in 1954, directly on top of the leveled ruins of Gulag Camp U3, part of the Norilsk complex. Between 1935 and 1956, an estimated 18,000 political prisoners and common criminals died within a 2-kilometer radius, executed, starved, frozen, or worked to death in the nickel mines. The VDV paratroopers who moved into Block 4 in 2018 were some of the hardest men in the Russian military. They'd fought in Syria, Donbass, Chechnya. They laughed at ghost stories. Within 3 weeks, seasoned sergeants were refusing night guard in the building. Within 6 weeks, the brigade psychologist had a captain with 2 Afghanistan tours was medically evacuated south, sobbing uncontrollably. Within 3 months, Block 4 had its first attempted suicide. What follows is compiled from 7 on-record interviews with surviving members of the 83rd who served in Barracks Block 4 between 2018 and 2020. Names have been changed for their protection. Some still serve. Some never came home the same. Chapter 1. The Empty Beds. My name is Senior Lieutenant Artyom Volkov, Platoon Commander, 3rd Air Assault Company, 83rd Separate Guards Air Assault Brigade. I've jumped into this base with the advance party in the dead of a Siberian January. Temperature so low, the air itself felt sharp enough to cut skin. The base commander met us on the pad, breath freezing into a white mask across his mustache. After the usual formalities, he pulled me aside and said, "Your company is assigned to Block 4. Old building. Some peculiarities. Keep your men sharp, Volkov." That was all. No elaboration. I figured he meant rats, mold, maybe a broken boiler. Normal Russian army surprises. Block 4 stood apart from the new prefab modules. A 3-story concrete box left over from the 50s. Windows sealed with plywood. Roof sagging under decades of ice. Inside smelled of wet cement, kerosene, and something metallic I couldn't place. Each floor had 4 open bays, rows of double bunks welded to the floor in perfect lines. 48 mattresses issued, 48 men. Simple math. Except every bay also had 4 extra bed frames, bare springs, no mattresses, thick gray dust undisturbed for years. When I asked the Starshina why the extra frames, he shifted his eyes and muttered, "Those belong to the camp. We don't touch them." I laughed it off. Gulag stories were older than my grandfather. I had jump wings to earn and Arctic certification to finish. We settled in. Kit stacked. Weapons cleaned, duty roster posted, lights out at 2200 sharp because the generators couldn't carry wasted watts. I drew the first duty officer shift, walking the corridors every hour with a flashlight and a dim red flashlight so I wouldn't ruin my night vision. Second round, just past 0200. 3rd floor corridor silent except for the wind clawing at the plywood. I pushed open the door to Bay 3 East, swept the beam across the rows of sleeping paratroopers, then froze. The 4 empty beds at the far end no longer empty. On each bare spring lay the perfect outline of a sleeping man. Not blankets pulled tight, not rolled up kit. Full gray wool greatcoats, the old pre-war pattern with standing collars, draped and folded so precisely they looked occupied. I could see the crease where a head would rest, the bulge of shoulders, even the slight dip where knees bent. Boots would have hung off the end if boots had been there. I blinked hard. The shape stayed. I stepped closer, boots crunching on frost that had blown under the door. When the light hit the nearest coat, the fabric collapsed inward, as if whatever had been wearing it simply evaporated. Dust rose in slow motion, catching the red beam like smoke. My hand went to the radio on my chest. "Guard post. This is duty officer. Send Corporal Morozov to 3rd floor, Bay 3 East, right now. Morozov arrived 30 seconds later, rifle slung, eyes wide. He stared at the 4 neatly folded greatcoats now lying flat where bodies had been moments before. "Sir," he whispered, "those weren't here at lights out. I locked the bay myself. I ordered every coat collected and carried downstairs. 19 greatcoats in all, 1 for every empty bed in the building. Buttons polished, mirror bright, no moth holes, no names or unit patches, just the faint smell of wet earth and old blood. We fed them into the furnace behind the boiler room. Flames took them hungrily, wool crackling like small arms as it burned. Next morning the coats were back. Same beds, same perfect folds. Buttons gleaming like they'd been spit-shine for Saturday inspection. Dust around them undisturbed, as if they'd grown out of the springs overnight. No one in the company claimed responsibility. No one laughed. Seasoned contractniki who'd slept through mortar barrages in Syria suddenly looked like recruits on their first night. I reported it up the chain. The colonel's answer came back inside an hour. Burn them again, and stop wasting my time with fairy tales. We burned them again. They returned again. After the 3rd night, I stopped burning them, just stacked the coats in an empty ammo crate in the corridor and pretended they didn't exist. But every time I walked past that crate afterward, I heard the faintest sound, like fabric shifting against itself, like something inside trying to stand at attention and failing. That was our welcome to Barracks Block 4. 4 empty beds that refused to stay empty, and we hadn't even met the rest of them yet. Chapter 2. The Shower Room. My name is Sergeant First Class Ilya Medvedev. Everyone just calls me Bear. I've been in the brigade since 2012. Chechnya rotation, Syria twice, Donbass before it was fashionable. I don't spook easy. Never have. But Block 4 found the one thing that could crawl under my skin. After the greatcoat nonsense, we stopped sleeping properly. You'd drift off and then snap awake at 03:30 every single night because the pipes started knocking. Not random clanks from frozen water, a deliberate rhythm. 20 knocks, pause, 20 knocks, like boots on tile. Always from the 2nd floor shower room. The water had been cut off the day we arrived. Pipes drained, valves locked, red. No way anything should have been moving in there, but the sound got louder every night until it felt like someone was marching inside your skull. On the 9th night, I'd had enough. I grabbed my AK-12, didn't even bother with a shirt, just boots and trousers, and went down alone. The corridor lights were off to save diesel, so I moved by red flashlight. The knocking stopped the second my boot hit the landing. Dead silence. Even the wind outside seemed to hold its breath. The shower room door was padlocked from the outside, chain thick as my wrist. Master lock still clicked shut, but heat radiated through the steel like there was a banya running full blast on the other side. I could feel it on my face 10 feet away. I kicked the door twice. Wood splintered, chain rattled but held. Third kick took the whole frame out of the wall. Dust and ice crystals exploded into the corridor. Inside was pitch black except for moonlight bleeding through the frosted windows. The floor tiles were wet, not damp, soaked, water an inch deep, black in the red light, rippling like something big had just moved through it. Steam rolled up from the drains in thick waves, even though the temperature was -20 inside the building. And they were there. 4 men standing under the old shower heads in striped telegreca jackets, the kind prisoners wore in the camps. Skinny, gray, faces half gone, just bone showing through frozen flesh. They were washing, scrubbing their forearms with chunks of basalt rock like they were trying to get decades of nickel dust out from under the skin. Blood ran pink across the tiles and vanished into the drains faster than it should have, like the floor was thirsty. I brought the rifle up. Nazad, hands where I can see them. They turned at the same exact second, smooth as marionettes. Empty sockets fixed on me. No breath, no frost on their lips. Just holes where eyes used to be. Then they started walking, not stepping, gliding, bare feet an inch above the water, leaving no ripples. I put 3 rounds into the chest of the closest one. Muzzle flash strobed white, thunder bouncing off concrete. Bullets punched straight through, sparked off the tile wall behind him. No blood, no stagger. He just kept coming. Arms out like he wanted to shake my hand. I backpedaled, slammed what was left of the door shut, and ran. Didn't stop until I hit the snow outside in nothing but trousers and dog tags. Frostbite warnings be damned. Morning formation, the shower room was bone dry. Tiles cracked from my boot. Sure, but no water, no blood, no bullet holes. Door hanging off its hinges like nothing had touched it. My magazine was 3 rounds light, and the rifle smelled like wet wool and old corpses for a week straight. I told the platoon sergeant. He looked at me a long time, then said, "Bear, you're on extra guard shifts for a month, and you don't go near that room again." I nodded like a good soldier, but every night after that, at 3:30 sharp, the knocking started again. 20 counts. Pause. 20 counts. And sometimes, if you stood in the corridor and listened hard enough, you could hear water running, even though the valves were still locked red. Chapter 3. The Children's Choir. My name is Danil Orlov. Back then I was 19, fresh out of Ryazan, radio operator for 3rd Company HQ section. Everyone treated me like the little brother, too young to drink, too young to shave properly, too young to have seen anything real. I thought Block 4 would be the place I finally proved myself. Instead, it became the place that proved something to me. The singing started about 3 weeks in, always after midnight, always from the attic above the 3rd floor. Children's voices, high and pure, singing old Orthodox hymns the way they must have sounded in cathedrals before the Revolution. Spasi, Gospodi, Ludi Tvoya, Svyati Boz, pieces my babushka hummed when I was small. Perfect harmony, like a church choir rehearsing for Easter. At first we laughed. Someone had smuggled a Bluetooth speaker. Good prank. We tore apart every kit bag on the floor looking for it. Nothing. Then the singing moved. One night it was over Bay 3 West, next night Bay 3 East, then directly above the stairwell. Always the same voices, always the same songs, always crystal clear through 2 meters of concrete and insulation. The attic hatch was in the ceiling of the 3rd floor corridor, a steel plate welded shut sometime in the 90s. You could still see the burn marks where the torch had gone around the edges. No ladder, no pull-down stairs, no way up short of a cutting torch. The base engineers swore it had never been reopened since the day it was sealed. One night, the entire bay woke at once. 36 men sitting bolt upright in their bunks, listening to children sing Christos Voskres like it was Pascha morning. The temperature dropped so fast, breath hung in front of our faces inside the bay. Frost crawled across the inside of the windows in perfect fern patterns. I was the lightest and the smallest, so they boosted me onto their shoulders. I pressed my ear to the hatch. The metal was warm, almost hot. Through it, I heard small hands clapping, slow and deliberate, keeping perfect time with the hymn. Then the singing stopped mid-phrase, and a little girl's voice spoke right against the steel, close enough that I felt the vibration in my teeth. Dyadya soldat, vam kolodno, nam toze kolodno, pustid nas von. Uncle Soldier, are you cold? We're cold too. Let us out. 3 soft scratches like fingernails looking for a seam. I dropped so fast I nearly broke the necks of the 2 guys holding me. No one spoke for the rest of the night. We just sat there in the dark, rifles across our knees, staring at the ceiling. Next morning, 27 transfer requests hit the first sergeant's desk, mine included. Only 2 were approved, both medics with real medical profiles. The rest of us were told to grow up and remember we're VDV, not some rear echelon orchestra. After that, nobody went to the 3rd floor alone. Ever. We did fire guard in pairs, weapons loaded, lights on. And we stopped laughing when the singing started, because sometimes between verses you could hear a second set of voices join in. Adult male voices, low and hoarse, like men who'd spent years breathing nickel dust. They never quite managed the tune. They always sounded like they were learning the words for the first time. And the little girl never asked again to be let out. She only asked if we were cold. Chapter 4. The Major Who Forgot His Name. My name is Captain, Medical Service, Yevgeny Sobol. I was the brigade psychologist attached to the 83rd from February to April 2019. My orders were simple. Keep the battalion combat effective in extreme Arctic conditions. Instead, I watched an entire company fracture along invisible fault lines, and the worst fracture ran straight through Major Pavel Sergeyevich Kovalenko. Pavel was the executive officer of 2nd Battalion. 38 years old, built like a tank. 2 Syrian tours, Order of Courage with swords, the kind of officer who could quiet a room just by walking in. Men followed him because they follow men who have already pulled them out of the fire once or twice. He did not believe in ghosts, God, or weakness. The first time he came to my office, he laughed at the idea of stress counseling. He only wanted sleeping pills because the building is too noisy at night. I gave him melatonin and told him to come back if it got worse. It got worse. Within 10 days, he began sleepwalking. Orderlies found him at SO 400 standing motionless in the ground floor corridor, wearing full winter kit, parka hood up, staring at a blank wall. When they shook him awake, he looked confusedly, asked what time formation was, then went back to bed like nothing happened. 2 nights later, the same thing, except this time he was barefoot in -30 corridor air, frostbite already blackening his toes. Still no memory. By the end of February, he could not recall his own name when woken suddenly. He would sit on the edge of his bunk, eyes open but empty, and repeat a single phrase in a flat voice that didn't sound like his. "Ya nomer 325, 325. I am number 325. We ran every test in the book. MRI in Novosibirsk, heavy metal blood panel, psychovals, even an exorcism attempted quietly by the battalion's Orthodox deacon. Don't ask. Everything came back clean. No tumors, no psychosis, no toxins, just a man slowly deleting himself. The final night, 23rd of March 2019, he vanished from his bunk. We searched the building top to bottom. At 05:17, a private heard scraping from the basement and kicked in a false panel we didn't know existed. Behind it was the old punishment cell. A brick box, 2 meters by 3, no window, iron door bricked over sometime in the 70s. Pavel had dug through 1/2 meter of Soviet mortar with his bare hands. His fingernails were gone, fingertips raw bone, blood frozen in black ribbons on the wall. He was curled inside in fetal position, still in his winter camouflage, whispering that number over and over. When the medics tried to pull him out, he fought like a cornered animal, screaming in a voice I still hear in my sleep. "I still have 14 years left on my sentence. You can't take me early. The camp commander will shoot me." We sedated him with enough ketamine to drop a horse. The Mi-8 medevac lifted off at dawn. He was strapped to the stretcher, eyes wide open, still counting. Tried 2-5. Last report I received, he is in a closed ward at the Bekhterev Institute in St. Petersburg. He eats when fed, shits when taken to the toilet, but has not spoken a voluntary word in 5 years. The only time he reacts is when someone says the word attic. Then he begins to weep without sound and tries to dig at the floor with his fingers. The official diagnosis is dissociative fugue, state secondary to Arctic isolation. The men who carried him out of that cell have a shorter name for it. They say Major Kovalenko went into Block 4, and prisoner 325 came out wearing his skin. Chapter 5. Evacuation. Senior Lieutenant Artyom Volkov again, 3rd Company. By the second winter of 2019-2020, only 19 of us were still willing to sleep inside Block 4. The rest had moved into heated tents at the edge of the airfield. -50 be damned, because at least the wind outside didn't whisper your name in someone else's voice. We kept the building running on skeleton crews, 2 men per floor on rotating fire watch, lights on 24 hours, doors wedged open with entrenching tools so nothing could. Close behind you. We told ourselves it was procedure. We knew it was fear. Then came 12 February 2020. I was on duty officer again. USO 214 hours. I remember the exact minute because the wall clock in the orderly room stopped at 0207 and never moved again. At 0217, the fire alarm went off, every klaxon in the building screaming at once. No smoke, no heat, just the bells loud enough to rupture eardrums. Then the corridors filled with boots. Hundreds of them. Running. Heavy. Deliberate. The way men run when they're late for roll call and know the guards will beat them for it. Doors slammed up and down the stairwells. Someone started shouting orders in old Soviet Russian, words we hadn't used since the 90s. Schnell, schnell, strojja po 4. Faster, form 4s. My radio exploded with traffic. Every watch station reporting the same thing. Corridors full of movement, but when they swept with lights, nothing. Just cold air rushing past their faces like doors were opening and closing by themselves. I ran to the ground floor landing with the fire extinguisher team. The temperature had dropped so low, the metal handrails burned skin. Frost exploded across every surface in seconds, thick as hoarfrost on a corpse. We evacuated the building in whatever we were wearing. Some men came out barefoot, some in just underwear, rifles in hand. I did a head count in the snow under the floodlights. 19 present and accounted for. 19 living men. Then Private Orlov looked up and screamed. Every third-floor window was full of faces, dozens of them pressed to the glass, pale, eyeless, mouths open like they were trying to breathe through the panes, hands flat against the inside, leaving no condensation, no heat, just silhouettes in old telogreicas and striped pajamas, shoulder to shoulder, watching us the way prisoners watched the guards leave the compound. I raised my rifle, safety off, but there was nothing to aim at. Just glass and darkness and the feeling of being counted. That was when Colonel Demidov, a man who once stared down a Spetsnaz inspection team without blinking, grabbed the satellite phone with shaking hands and called brigade headquarters. His exact words, "I will never forget. Get us out. The building is occupied. Repeat, Block 4 is occupied by unknown hostile force. Request immediate emergency extraction." They started flying us south in Mi-8s the next morning. 3 days, 4 lifts. No one spoke on the flights. We just stared at the tundra sliding away beneath us like men waking from a fever dream. In April 2020, the engineers returned with bulldozers. Officially, the building suffered catastrophic structural failure due to permafrost heave. They razed it to the foundation, crushed the concrete, poured a new slab, and built a bright modern gymnasium on top with basketball hoops and rubber flooring. The men who stayed longest still wake at Orotu Sat7 sometimes, hearts hammering, listening for bells that never come. And every year on. The 12th of February, the new gym's fire alarm trips at the exact same minute. No smoke, just the sound of boots running across a floor that isn't there anymore. Chapter 6. The Ones Who Stayed. Anonymous active duty sergeant, 8th Separate Guards Air Assault Brigade, recorded summer 2024. They told us the building was gone. They showed us the satellite photos, clean white gym, running track around it, new floodlights. We wanted to believe it. Most of us did. Then in 2023, the brigade needed covered storage for the new Arctic trials. Snowmobiles, drones, experimental cold weather kit. The gym had a basement level nobody had used since construction. Perfect. Orders came down. Clear it out. Turn it into a warehouse. We opened the roll-up doors expecting an empty shell. The rubber gym flooring stopped 2 meters in. After that, the old concrete was still there, scarred and stained. Shower room tiles cracked in the same places Bear's boot had hit them 5 years earlier. Bullet chips from his 3-round burst still peppered the far wall like metal freckles. The basement door was supposed to have been filled in. It wasn't. The frame was there. Hinges new, like someone had replaced them last week. No lock, just a hasp and a fresh padlock that hadn't been snapped shut. Inside, the punishment cell waited exactly as Major Kovalenko had left it. Finger grooves in the mortar still wet-looking, dark, frozen blood polished into the brick like varnish. On the floor, someone had scratched a crude calendar, 6,005 marks, 17 years exactly. We backed out, closed the door, and told the Starshina the space was contaminated with old heating oil residue. Too toxic. He didn't argue. Some lies are mercy. Now the gym is open every day. Basketball tournaments, PT, movie nights for the young kids. They love it. Bright lights, warm, smells like new paint. But the duty roster still lists 2 men every night for fire watch, lower level. We go down in pairs, rifles slung, lights on max. We don't talk much. We just walk the corridors that aren't supposed to exist anymore and listen. At 03:30, the pipes knock 20 counts, pause, 20 counts. At 02:17 on the 12th of February, the alarm trips. Engineers have replaced the entire system twice. Doesn't matter. And sometimes, if the gym is empty and you stand under the basketball hoop on the exact spot where Bay 3 East used to be, you can hear small hands clapping slowly overhead. Keeping perfect time. We don't look up anymore. The dead never left. They just changed uniform. New building, same prisoners, same guards. We're still here. So are they. Chapter 7. What We Carry. Compilation. Voices of the Survivors. 83rd Brigade, 2018-2025. Artyom Volkov. I left the Arctic with frostbite scars on both hands and a medical discharge for sleep disorder, unspecified. I still wake at Earth 330 every night, convinced there is a greatcoat folded on the chair beside my bed. My wife learned not to touch that chair. She knows. Ilya Bear Medvedev. I drink now. Not drunk, just enough so the pipes stop knocking inside my head. I can still smell wet wool on my rifle, even though it's been reblued twice. My little daughter asked me once why I keep the bathroom light on when I shower. I told her the dark is too loud. Danil Orlov. I'm 25, and I've never been able to go inside a church again. The moment the choir starts, I hear the children above me, clapping, waiting to be let out. I stand in the back, sweating, until I have to leave. My mother thinks I lost my faith in Syria. I let her think that. It's kinder. Anonymous sergeant, still serving. We don't say the building's name anymore. We call it the gym. But every new rotation gets the quiet talk. Don't go to the basement alone. Don't answer if someone calls you by a number, and if the alarm goes off at 0217, just walk outside and wait. The young ones roll their eyes. 6 months later, they stop rolling their eyes. Yevgeny Sobol, former captain, Paratroopers. I resigned my commission after the Kovalenko case. I teach civilian psychology now in Moscow. Students ask why I keep the lights on in my office at night. I tell them old habit. Truth is, I still check corners for a man in winter camouflage who doesn't know his own name. All of us together, we were VDV. Glory to the airborne. Nobody stronger. But strength doesn't matter when the enemy has already been waiting 70 years for fresh bodies to wear. Some nights we message each other in the old company chat. Same 3 words, always at 0217 or 33. You hear it too. And the answer is always yes. The official report calls it mass psychogenic illness, vitamin D deficiency, suggestion under stress. We call it owing a debt we can never repay because we walked out. They didn't. And every one of us carried something back in our boots, in our lungs, in the spaces behind our eyes. We are home now, but part of us is still on the 3rd floor, standing inspection in greatcoats that no one issued, waiting for roll call that will never end. If you wear the blue beret and you ever get orders north of the 70th parallel, remember this. Some barracks don't empty when the living leave. They just wait for the next shift. And the empty beds are always made up fresh. Buttons polished ready for you.